All right, so apparently we're live, which is a start. I'll be right back. Close that. You guys be good. I'll bring you free snacks, okay? All right. Hey, how's it going, Sunless Sentinel? Can you hear everything? All right, everybody. I'm just trying to get some of the kinks out of this whole system real quick. So I just wanted to work some of this out really fast. I'm trying out some new equipment, trying out some new software. So give me a quick second to kind of pop in and out here just to check everything. And you guys can hear everything looks good on camera. It's not some weird black and white thing that started happening to me a minute ago. Let's see here. Okay. All right, I'll go ahead and move some things around really quick so I can talk to you guys while reading the comments so we can kind of interact a little bit more than just me blabbing for a long period of time, since you guys are already over that, I'm sure. Let's see here. All right. Vlad, I bet there is actually. I wouldn't be surprised. Let's see. Now that all the snow melt happened, all those spiders are jumping all over the place. Okay. Well, it doesn't want me to type something apparently, because if it did, it wouldn't be reversed anyway. So let's get rid of that. Okay. That seems like it wouldn't be useful. Okay, so how's everybody doing tonight so far? Is everybody feeling pretty comfortable? Does everybody have enough supplies stocked up? Have you guys been out and about in the chaos that has been ensuing lately? I just have a light on behind me just to, I don't know, make it a little more interesting than just a plain white wall. But if you think it's distracting, Tyler, I can probably get rid of that. And it is a very patriotic mug. I'm trying to, support the country that I love with coffee, apparently. So yeah, Vlad, staying in is definitely the way to go. Unfortunately, right now with my current line of work, I have to be out in the public pretty often, and it is ridiculous lately. We're getting people that are complaining anytime somebody sneezes. I'm getting people who are asking us about like our health code and procedures versus, just enjoying themselves as usual. So it's getting really outlandish in many ways. Not Black Rifle Coffee yet. Don't tread on me, but I'm thinking about getting a subscription to them because I actually got some of their coffee recently, and I was pretty impressed. One of the things I do out here is actually run a coffee shop, and right now we use like a local bean roaster to have our coffee, just so we can say, that we're supporting a local business. But Black Rifle Coffee is much more tasty, so I'd love to kind of put that together. So let's see. Tyler, any suggestions on a specific field of preps? Yeah, I think what you have to do right now is get ahead of the crowd. You want to try to figure out what people are going to move to next. And one of the things I think that isn't tapped into, similar that you would see like in a hurricane or something like that, is gasoline. People aren't flooding the gas stations or anything like that quite yet. I'm not sure if that's going to be top of mind for a lot of people because of the things that they're worried about. But yeah, ammo run totally beginning right now, Vlad. I was actually at a Sportsman's Warehouse location tonight, just picking up a couple of reloading supplies, and it was just empty. Like 9mm gone, 40 caliber was, mostly empty. All the specialty self-defense ammunition was gone, and a lot of the rifle ammunition was starting to go for 5.56 and a little bit of like 308, 30-06. Some of them are standard rounds, and I saw guys buying racks and racks of shotgun ammunition. So, which was interesting because I don't know if it was the idea of panic buying in the sense of survivalism, because a lot of these guys are buying stacks and stacks of like birdshot, like number 7, number 9 birdshot. Then we had a lot of guys buying, number 4 turkey loads. So I just thought that was interesting. You think a lot of buckshot or slugs or something is what a lot of people shoot for when it goes to like a self-defense scenario for a shotgun. But out here, maybe because it's more rural, we had a lot of birdshot going out the door. So it was interesting, one of my things to do lately is to go ahead and see what's empty, just to kind of see what people are doing. I'm really kind of interested in finding out what people find to be important right now, And a lot of what I'm seeing is things you might not expect, like at Sportsman's Warehouse tonight. One of the things that was empty was the little survival like bags for like stuffing your clothes in, like the stuff sacks, I don't know why. I don't know why stuff sacks suddenly became really important, but that's kind of the thing I like to do currently, just because people are, I don't know, buying weird stuff, and I like to kind of see what we have to watch out for next time around, maybe. All right, so what in your M1A Sunless Sentinel? So I used to own an M1A, and it was rated for 7.62 by 51, and I usually shot 308 in it, but it is my understanding that if a rifle specifically stamps 7.62 by 51, that you should stick to those NATO rounds because of the higher pressures in 308. But I just was curious, like, what kind of rounds do you usually shoot through your M1A? Because that was something I always kind of tossed around in my head. So, and just so everyone's aware, I am just kind of waiting to get a few more people in the chat, in the stream, before going into the topic of discussion tonight. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of dominoes falling into place where we kind of expect them to fall, right? But we also, have some friends that are giving out some interesting information lately. And I think it's all really in line with kind of what the expectation is anyway. But I was just surprised to kind of hear it almost verified or validated through another source that has all the right connections. So I want to just give it a little bit for a few more people to pop in. I think this is my first hosted live stream. I've done some live streams with other preppers before. Central Florida Prepper or Survival Living Now, Prescott Caliber Club, Will Patriot. So some of those guys, I've definitely jumped in on their live streams, but I appreciate all you guys coming in tonight to my own hosted one. And I am looking forward to doing some more of these in the future and trying to have some more like casual conversations with everybody, because the comments are great, but we all know, after a few days that video is no longer around and we're moving on to the next thing. And we don't really respond to each other after a certain point in the comments section. So I'd like to kind of do some more of these live streams and I don't know, just talk with everybody and really interact with you guys. This channel's grown really well, and I really appreciate everybody here. And without you guys helping me out and helping get things going, who knows if I would have kept going the way I have. So we're almost going on a year since the channel's creation. All the Magic Prepper names and everything were, set up and everything back in March of 2019. The channel didn't really start putting out videos till April. So thank you guys so much. So if you're in New York City, right, I would expect something drastic. And it is interesting to me that, de Blasio is not shutting down schools and stuff, which I understand in many ways, especially for the amount of people in the city who rely on schools as a form of childcare. And, that's how they get to work the next day and whatnot. And those people not being able to go to work or not being able to afford childcare might really negatively affect the city as a whole. But any major city, especially one like New York City, that has an interconnected like transit system and has people in really small spaces, has a vested interest in locking down, because it's much easier to spread a virus and contract things when you're in those close quarters. And regardless of what maybe their alternative motives are during this situation, you got to keep the large mass populations under control and keep the panic from rising, or else you're going to have something, out of your control and out of your hands very quickly. So, yeah, New York lockdown coming this week. At was it M3 style or is it me style? Because me style sounds kind of interesting. Yes, Puff the Magic Prepper. Maybe at a different point in my life that would have applied a little bit more correctly. So, wow, there's some awesome people in this chat right now. I really appreciate every single one of you being here. I'm really excited to get this whole live stream thing going. It's been pushed off for a long time, but I finally got like an office set up here at the house and finally got a better computer system to be able to work some of these things out instead of trying to crush everything out on my laptop constantly, because I think it was starting to become a little bit abused. So let's see here. So, just for you guys to discuss in the chat, I think it'd be really cool to talk about any situations you've seen or anything negative you've seen happening while you're out and about in your everyday life lately. I can't go to any store and not see some weird stuff happening. And even just today, I was at a really not very well-known pharmacy that was in like a hole in a wall in an office building. And even they were selling out of weird things. They were selling out of blood pressure testers. They're selling out of all kinds of stuff related to medical equipment that might not even have a reason or a place when it comes to the current pandemic itself. But it was strange that it was just, like blood pressure tests, they're all gone. I don't understand, but maybe that's something people who don't want to go out and don't want to visit their doctor on a regular basis now have to invest in because they're worried about taking care of themselves, but while not going and visiting the doctor and not going to the hospital and not exposing themselves to where people might be sick. So I guess that's the only thing I can think of. Let's see here. So I'm just going to check the comments really quick. We got a good crew in here right now. So then we can start talking a little bit more about the subject at hand. Yeah, Shane Fowler, you're, up in the mountains in Washington. That's awesome. Probably a good place to stay, right? But, Washington feels almost like ground zero here in this country. So maybe you can give us some good insight on how things are going in your area. Let's see. Yeah, a stabbing at your Sam's Club tonight, Jay Ochoa. Yep. I had some reports tonight of, fights breaking out at the Walmart in town. And, just so you guys are aware, this Walmart is the only Walmart for about an hour to, actually, it's like about a 2-hour radius around that Walmart. It's the only one. And it's really the only like big box store in a 2-hour radius. So it's where everyone's going. And there's a lot of interesting people coming through town lately. So I guess that's the best way to say it. Okay, so really quickly, guys, with martial law being imminent, the whole idea behind it is the fact that every step to declaring martial law has been taken. We are on our way to that being another phase of this whole situation. In order to declare martial law, it's much easier to do when you have a national emergency in place, which obviously was just recently declared. Of course, there's a lot of reasons for declaring a national emergency, and just declaring a national emergency on its own doesn't mean that it is guaranteed that you're going to have martial law. The idea, though, is that every step of what we expect to have happen during a scenario like this one is happening. So the only thing we can do as preppers and people who are of a prepared mindset is assume that it's probably going to happen at some point. If it doesn't, great. We don't want it to happen. But if it does, well, then suddenly we're in a situation where things get really tricky, right? So we'll go ahead and go over this, and then if we have a lot of newcomers come in later on in the stream, I'll go ahead and kind of readdress it down the road. But so my understanding is what we'll say, just so I don't, put myself into any kind of a strange situation here. But an acquaintance of mine has a what you might call a close family member that works for the Pentagon, and the family member of sorts is basically stating that there's a countdown and a timeline right now for the Defense Department to enact a form of martial law based on some certain indicators and a certain amount of time. So what that means is what they're telling me is that in 3 weeks, if nothing starts to improve, or if we don't see some kind of a strange turnaround or a miraculous change of the way people are reacting, because a lot of this is actually based on people's panic more so than the virus itself at this point when it comes to these decisions. We have about a 3-week timeline from now to where martial law will be declared. And that's the information that I'm receiving. I think it's a relatively credible source. And of course, I'm not going to reveal who the people are that I'm speaking with in order to get some of this information. But I did feel like it was valid enough for me to share with everybody, but it's also something that whether or not it happens, we should be preparing for it to happen anyway. And I think all of you are in the same mindset as that, right? Hey, what's up, Robert Willie? All the way from the East Bay. Man, I am 100% happy I don't live near Pittsburgh, California anymore while all this is going on. I'm not going to lie to you. So that was an interesting time in my life. But so basically, if that timeline's correct, and we have 3 weeks until something can be declared based on a certain level of indicator, right? Then all of us here in this chat, and everybody who's listening, should have that understanding that, yes, we need to start preparing a year ago. We need to start preparing, yesterday, 2 weeks ago. But if you're not fully prepared right now, it's very likely that within the next 3 weeks, you're not going to have a choice to continually prepare the way that many people are right now. And the unfortunate side effect of this panic buying is that everybody is buying up everything to the point where even the average person who is prepared or has additional supplies stored away is feeling the need to go get more because things only last so long. And many of us, including myself, don't have years and years of food stored away, and I don't have years and years of toiletries stored away. We have some extra supplies, but the worst part about this whole situation is everybody's going to exponentially buy. Everyone is trying to go out. And some of the feeling that I'm getting on the ground right now from people who have zero preparedness in their thought process is that they're scared and they're stressed, and the first thing they want to do is freak out, and they're trying to call in sick to work to literally go to the grocery store. I'm getting phone calls saying I can't come to work today because I need to go buy stuff, right? So that is going to grow exponentially because each item that disappears is going to be considered valuable and, obviously rare and going to be sought out more and more and more. And it's gotten to the point where I really don't think the virus, yes, is an issue, of course. Obviously, many of us believe it's kind of, I don't know, maybe a little out of proportion or maybe a little bit over the top with some of the reaction to it. However, a lot of what's moving into the next phase is the way these people are reacting and how people are treating this whole situation. I mean, we as a people are literally proving the point of why our leadership doesn't trust us to make smart decisions because of the way people are reacting. You see this in a microcosm on a regular basis. Each season in the Gulf states, you see you see people preparing for hurricanes. You see people getting ready for imminent disaster. They're ready for it. And a lot of times after some of these bigger storms, there is martial law. There is a form of it at least enacted where the National Guard comes in, the rationing, or helping secure people's businesses and everything else. So it's kind of a standard practice for that region. But the people who are usually not quite affected by those things, especially in the larger cities, and of course, we're talking about places like Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York City, Chicago, all those places is where the panic is eventually going to turn into mass hysteria if it doesn't get stymied. And that is, I think, why the Pentagon and why people in the Defense Department are planning the next phase of a martial law event, because it's about the people not being able to control themselves more so than it's about a virus being spread at this point. And it makes sense. You know, if people get desperate enough, we know what they do. We've seen what they do, even when there's just opportunity, not even when there's desperation. When there's opportunity, people are out rioting and looting because of a protest that they basically decided, well, I'm going to use this opportunity to go rob a CVS, and I'm going to go rob a Best Buy and take a bunch of TVs and whatnot. But what we're really seeing right now is people who are actually desperate. They're not just opportunists. They're scared and they're desperate. And we all know that, you know, a scared and desperate animal is very dangerous. And the same logic applies to being a human being. So yes, let's go through some of the comments. I want to kind of respond to some of you guys. And then I think here in just a minute, my wife is going to come by and say hello. She's pretty excited about the live stream setup as well. And she's very, very supportive of this channel. So I think it'd be nice for her to come say hello, and you guys can see her for a little bit because she's way better to look at than I am. So let's see here. So yeah, casual preparedness during Hurricane Opal. I mean, I honestly feel like being from the Gulf Coast and being involved with storm preparation on a regular basis. There you go, Cameron. You're better. Okay. Is why I started being a prepper in the first place. I grew up in Sarasota, Florida, actually, and we didn't get many direct hits from storms, but it didn't matter. You still had to prepare for the ones that were coming our way. We didn't know where they're going to land. And it's something my family kind of preached, you know, like we have batteries, we have flashlights, we have water, we have, you know, all those supplies that most people, or a lot of parts of the country, for the average person, not most of the people in this chat, tend to take for granted. So let's see here. Yeah, so yeah, only ammo left on the shelves is birdshot and some 40 cal, which I do find funny. I know 40 cal is kind of dying off a little bit. I mean, if you run 40 cal, more power to you. It does have more energy than a 9mm. I've just never been a fan, to be quite honest with you. Yep, Angel Soft on the side of the road for 20 bucks. Yep, it's all over the Facebook Marketplace. It's all over Craigslist and stuff. I mean, it's ridiculous, honestly, and it just goes to show, you know, of course, everybody's gonna turn this into a profitability opportunity if possible. So no, my wife is not a large cat with a white painted stripe, but I could see why you might assume that based on my appearance. So yeah, so Matt and AZ, my P320 is a C, yes, a carry. You know, it is it's just enough grip with a flush magazine that I get a full grip on it. And you know, I have relatively large hands. I'm 6'3", so you know, proportionally, I feel like I have decently large hands, and I get a full size grip on the carry frame. So, yep, I would definitely suggest grabbing one. Let's see here. Yep, Florida people are crazy, and that's why I'm from there, and I can admit that it's not offensive, right, Jay Stone? Okay, and then let's see. So the people with hospital jobs, that's an interesting issue. So basically, a lot of times during these events, medical professionals get called in with an all hands on deck scenario, and then they get, from my understanding, is there's a higher level of oversight from the government when there is a martial law scenario as to the movements and the positioning of that medical staff. Maybe COVID-96, maybe you can chime in on some of this for us. If you're a nursing worker, that'd be excellent. As I am not in the medical field, so I'm not 100% on this topic. But yeah, what I understand is that especially the medical care workers who are involved with the infected patients are definitely restricted in, you know, what they're able to do and where they're able to go, and a lot of things like that. Maybe we can get some more of our medical professionals in the chat here to chime in and kind of let me know what your thoughts are, or maybe your fears or concerns of if a martial law was to be declared in your area, what that would mean for you as a medical professional. I mean, I know that for the average person, it's generally a curfew, a lockdown, a limitation of your rights and everything else. But medical professionals are needed, and they're also expected to perform their duties during those times, especially if the reason for a martial law event is a pandemic. Which, yes, the World Health Organization, declared it a pandemic when we all already knew it kind of was. But yeah, I just feel like even if the martial law event's not going to be declared because of this pandemic, it will be blamed on the pandemic, basically. So, man, there's a lot of Floridians here. Yeah, maybe you guys saw me on Central Florida Preppers channel originally. I don't know. Let's see. Revolver Solver. Great question, and only because I like talking about firearms, as you guys know. But really quickly, let's see here. I definitely would suggest buying. Usually, I suggest buying buckshot, and the main reason is that it's just there's more possibilities from buckshot. Slugs, are a single projectile. Buckshot, sometimes you have 9, sometimes you have 12, 15. It depends on the length of the slug, of the shot shell. But basically, what you want to do is, in my opinion, stick with the buckshot. But if you're going to have slugs, they're very similar, in all honesty. Buckshot, because of the wad that comes behind it, is going to throw those projectiles into the same vicinity as a slug would, and it's going to all hit the same target unless you get out to a really, really far distance. And with a shotgun, and if you're using like a rifled barrel with possibly a scope on it, 200 yards is your max effective range. So when you're talking about self-defense and things like that, we're talking very close, and that's not enough speed or distance for those buckshot projectiles to actually pattern. So that's my short answer, apparently. So yeah, let's see here, guys. I'm gonna go ahead and have my wife come by and say hi now. So, and then I'll go back and we can go back into some more of the martial law topic. So that way, if anybody's new to the stream and you've missed any of that information or anything like that, I can get you guys, up to speed. So let's see here. You want to come in and say hi?
Hello.
My wife is pregnant right now. So basically, some of our preparation needs are being, I guess you could say, not met the way we would usually like. We have extra supplies, but some of the things that we were used to kind of buying just when needed are no longer available. And when I say that, I mean things like baby wipes, right? Like we buy the large packs of baby wipes and they last a long time. So we have a lot of baby wipes, right? But I don't tend to feel like I need to have 12 cases of baby wipes stashed away. But right now I'm like, well, crap, that might be hard to find. So, some of the things that's affecting everyone else is starting to cause problems when it comes to the idea of having a new baby. Why don't you come in closer? Come in. They want to see you. They don't want to see me anymore now that they saw you. Basically, a big issue that we're having right now is, maybe you guys aren't aware of this, but our baby is going to be due in about 2 months, and they're not allowing additional visitors into the hospital. So we can only have one visitor, which means if she goes into labor, I'm the visitor, right? And that's it. So now we can't have family support there. We can't have our kids around or anything else like that. So it's causing some logistical concerns, right? Which we have 2 months. So hopefully things are cleaned up by then, but we'll see. But the other side of that is some hospitals are now restricting it to patients only. And there's cases of people going into labor and only having the mother there. They won't even let the father in the room while the baby's being delivered. So that being said, I would be pretty upset if I'm not allowed to be there for the baby being born. Just throwing that out there. So these are the things that are starting to concern me. Not things I planned for, because with a pregnancy, we can't change our timeline. We can't change anything else. So Kelly M, we can do a home birth most likely if that's required. However, my wife does have some risks health-wise, so it is kind of a concern. There has been some issues with our previous two children when they were born. There was some things that the doctors just needed to be there to monitor, basically. But it's something we're considering. But it's not. This is like a strange side effect of this whole situation that we weren't necessarily looking toward at the time, right? And like I said, most things in life we can rearrange and kind of approach in a different way. But right now, she's gonna have a baby whenever the baby says she's coming out. So. They're saying hi to you, so you should say
hi.
Hi. I'm not forcing her to be on this live stream, even though it might look that way. Okay, so I just want you guys to know that. Anybody who hasn't been here since the start of the conversation, make sure you just say #new or something like that, just so I can see how many people are newer to the chat. If you didn't hear any information about the imminent martial law that is more than likely going to be declared, at least per region, if not, on a national scale, obviously based on certain indicators and based on a certain timeline, just let me know so I can kind of see who all needs to kind of jump in and, learn some more of that information. I mean, this isn't going to change what you're doing now. If you're prepared and you want to continue to be prepared, that's where you should be. We're all in the preparedness mindset. We all want to thrive and survive, right? That's what we're trying to do together. So the information that we're talking about is just to try to keep everyone updated. And I don't care if something doesn't necessarily come to fruition. Us preparing for it as if it will is going to be much better in the long run than us just saying, no, that'll never happen. Because that's the mindset of everybody else out there who's buying all the toilet paper, who's buying all the hand sanitizer, who's buying all the bleach. All those people have no idea what they're doing. And they're also the same exact people who, when they've talked to me 6 months ago, are like, you're crazy. That's not going to happen. You're a conspiracy theorist or whatever, right? And it's not really valid at this point in time. We all know what the real situation is. So, hey, what's up, Josh Connor? How's it going, brother? So, good night, Vlad. Good to see you, brother. Hopefully I can jump on some more of your live streams. Schedule's been tight lately, but I do try to catch them when I can. So I appreciate you. All the new people, welcome. Glad you guys came by. So here's what's going on, basically, as a recap for everybody else who's been here, and as a way to give you guys the information you might have missed. I have an acquaintance, is what we're calling this person, who's close family member, right? And when I say these things, I'm trying not to give out any information that I don't want to divulge necessarily. But anyway, this family member works in the Pentagon, and what they've been briefed on recently was the fact that if things continue in the way that they're going now, and if not only the virus continues to spread, but if the people continue to react the way they are, more so than the virus spread itself, but the people panicking, the buying out of the supplies in the stores, and the people starting to cause violent confrontations when they're out and about in public. If that continues to happen, then we're looking at a 3-week timeline on a martial law declaration. And that is just, kind of what we all expect when these situations start to arise. All we do is talk about, how SHTF is going to start, how things are going to go, what's going to cause the big one, right? And we know what those dominoes falling looks like. And after you declare a national emergency, the ability to declare a martial law situation is there. It's right there, ready to go now, okay? This is also something that down the rabbit hole has been spoken about for a long time as well when it comes to, let's say, possible military tribunals that some people might be expecting at some point here in the future, correct? Billy Bird, yes, my wife does tell me to shut up pretty often, actually. I think once she gets more comfortable with this concept of being on camera in the live streams, you'll see a lot more harassment from her. See, she just choked me with her mind. That's how this works every time. Oh, God. The Freedom Cup, it's always saving me. So let's see here. Well, let me check up on the man. All right. I hope it's I hope I'm not gonna choke my way through the rest of this live stream. Okay. So catching up on the chat. And for those of you who are new, if you have any questions or if there's anything I might have missed and you were in the chat in the beginning, make sure you chime everybody in on some of the information we talked about. But it all seems very, very viable, the information itself, as well as logical. There's no reason not to assume that that could be the next step here. These, national emergency declarations give lots and lots of executive powers that otherwise wouldn't be had. And I believe it gives us some insight into what the future might look like. And like I said, everything is moving down the road. So basically, we go through here and just try to figure out if there's any awesome questions here in the chat. Let's see here. Yep, urban grandpa prepper curfews definitely coming if that's the case. So, be prepared to be not only, inside and indoors, but be prepared to be corralled at times. Yeah, Sunless Sentinel, the virus and people will get worse. The people will continually get worse, more so than the virus. The people are the problem a lot of times, unfortunately, and that's kind of what we prepare for the most, I would assume. Yeah, a big event is a horrible thing, right? Something that crashes our way of life overnight, is hard to come back from. But the biggest danger after that event is the people. It's not a lot of times the event itself, correct? So Archie Bunker. So basically what they're saying is that if things don't turn around within the next 3 weeks, and if we don't have a grasp on not only the virus itself, but on the people's reaction to it, that is what we're looking at, a 3-week countdown. And at that point, the panic and the virus spread are both exponential. So within 3 weeks, you're looking at a lot of affected people when it comes to a martial law, as well as, an infection. So 3 weeks is what I'm understanding and what I was being told. And I find that information to be, at least somewhat valid. I don't see any reason to question it because of the source, as well as because of just how these situations work. I mean, we've all prepared for that scenario for the reason that we all believe it could eventually happen, correct? So let's see here. Let's see. Yeah, that 5'10", Robert. Yeah, that is that's martial law half the time anyway. It's just not being said that way, right? So New Jersey's on curfew now. Okay, I haven't seen that information come out yet, Billy Bird, but if that's the case, that's pretty intense. Let's see here. Swiss Army Josh, I don't live in a city either right now, but I do live in a hub. And when I say that, where we live has a we're out in the oil field, right? So in the oil field, it's lots of people from all over, not just the country, but all over the world. I have met more people from Africa and the Middle East out here than I even met in California, to be honest with you. So a big hub out here, and it is somewhat concerning because we have so much traffic in and out of this town from all over the place that, if there is some kind of a martial law or quarantine or something, it'll basically shut this town down, which is definitely scary for everyone who's local and everybody who works in this area. So let's see here. Yeah, Jasmine, Gemini, Venus, Leno. Yeah, it could last for months. That's the whole situation we're dealing with right now. It's not the fact that right now this is happening. It's the fact that if it's prolonged enough and affects the supply chain and martial law and everything else that we expect to have happen, that's when it gets bad. Because if things can be resolved quickly, people can slowly go back to like a normal way of life, and the average person, the general population, doesn't get to the point of desperation that they become the issue. But if we push things back for months, by the end of those months, which people in general are not prepared for months of anything, suddenly we're in a much more dangerous situation. So that is the biggest issue we have right now. Let's see. I mean, local law enforcement, urban grandpa prepper, local law enforcement in general, from what I've seen in my area, all they're doing is trying to help, and they're giving people advice. They're giving people some of the needier families are actually helping with supplies. They're giving people the resources they need to get the right information or where to go if things happen or whatnot. So that's the response I'm seeing so far. Once they get activated to actually be an enforcement company of not allowing people to be out after certain times or not allowing to be in certain areas or whatever that might be, that's when we'll find the true character of those individuals that right now are here to serve and protect. So I would say that they have a job to do just like anybody else, and I don't fault them for upholding, their position for what it is they're expected to do, even if we don't necessarily agree with what's happening. It is hard to fault somebody for, doing their job, I guess. So it's kind of difficult, but it is something we have to keep an eye on. Rip Curl, how's it going, man? Good to see you here. So Rip Curl says, we are going to be in a lockdown sooner than that. We are going to get the announcement soon to give us 1 to 2 weeks to get prepared for a total lockdown and quarantine. So a lot of people have that belief. And I would say a lot of people are in the same boat of thinking that, yeah, this could happen really soon. I mean, everything's happening pretty quickly. We saw the development of all this since December, right? And I would say a lot of us saw it coming and said, okay, well, we'll see what happens here. But we all knew that China was masking the numbers, right? We all know China wasn't going to, tell us the truth when it came to how many people were infected or how many people, were passing away. So the same thing could happen, on our end. Everything could get faster and faster and faster because the information isn't actually coming out, or the information that is coming out is either behind or not correct. So I think that's all extremely possible, and I think it's very likely that we could see things happen sooner. But yeah, and that's another reason why that 3-week timeline that I was given based on information from a reliable source didn't seem unreasonable to me. In fact, like you said, if like for Rip Curl, it seems like it's actually slow. So there was no reason for me to feel like it was an outlandish claim or it was something that, wasn't possible, basically. So let's see here. Okay. Yep. Okay. So yeah, if you have a farm or a way to plant food and grow your own calories, basically, then of course that's a great idea. Let's see. Yeah, we don't want law enforcement to take advantage of it. Generally, I would say you see a lot of that in larger municipalities, but out here where I live in a rural environment, like our sheriff's department is very, hands-on and knows their people and is there for support. Our police department, same story. They're here to just make sure everybody's safe. That's what it feels like anyway. And I didn't get the same feeling when I lived in like the Sacramento region of California. That was a little bit more standoffish. I didn't know those people as well. Are you leaving? Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure my wife's not disappearing because then I feel like everybody's going to leave, But let's see here. Hey, Twy1, that's how I'm saying it anyway. If I'm wrong, let me know. But how's it going? Good to see you. You've got 10 acres, Sunless Sentinel. See, that's a great start, and that's it's better than a lot of people ever get in their entire lifetime. So, kudos to you. And definitely, right now, I'm not in a position where I can have 10 acres, but it is something that we're planning on here in the future. And everything we're doing with our finances and business-wise and everything else is so that we can move our situation into a more affordable, but more private and larger footprint scenario. So thanks for being part of supporting this channel, which eventually could possibly help us get there. I don't know. So that would be amazing though. So I would say a good discussion and something I think a lot of us could think about and a lot of you guys could chime in on, or at least kind of just tell me your thoughts, is what do you think, like what do you do right now if you're sick? What do you do if you're in need of medical care, but you're not necessarily sure if it's worth that trip to the hospital or worth that trip to the doctor's office? When does it get to the point where basic necessities that you might need medically aren't worth the risk of, exposing yourself or interacting with other people? Just tell me your thoughts on that, because that is something that I'm hearing a lot lately too, that, people are avoiding going to the doctor, avoiding getting their medical care because they feel, I guess, worried that by going to an environment with sick people, they're going to get sick. So it's something interesting to think about, and it is something that a lot of people are turning to. Another thing that I've noticed, if you guys are prepared, you're stocked, you have a lot of maybe medicine or medical supplies. For those of you who are new to preparing or preparedness, maybe you're new to being a prepper, right? There are ways through pet suppliers to get yourself things like amoxicillin, penicillin, things like that. And that, yes, of course, those do not actually help the current virus or the viral pandemic. Of course, antibiotics don't affect viruses, but as something to have on hand for, let's say, a situation where you do have an infection, but going to the hospital seems like a death sentence, right? Not because of the virus itself, maybe, but because of the crowds and the chaos and the panic of all the people that are in the hospital. Having some medical supplies that you can treat yourself with, obviously on your own accord, not with anybody else's liability, but having those supplies gives you that flexibility to say, I don't have to go to the hospital for this minor infection. I have some of these supplies, right? These are things that as preppers, we need to think about. And just so you're aware, I used to purchase some of those items on eBay. They were kind of easier to get a hold of. They're not really available on Amazon or something like that. But I can't find any on eBay right now. Things are selling out, let's just say. So another thing you could prepare for right now that you could get yourself without falling behind is some of those antibiotics that are available through pet suppliers, okay? There's a lot of videos, there's a lot of books out there on alternative versions of antibiotics and how you can get them. Let's see. If you can get them, right now is a good time, because like I said, they're selling out. So I found some today, still available for sale, actually through Walmart's pet pharmacy. So yes, we hate supporting the evil Walmart, I know, but sometimes when we're looking for supplies, it's just nice to know where there's some other stock left over. So if you want to look something like that up, just like I said, search those terms on pet supply stores and then search the information yourself. Don't take my advice on taking something that's not medically savvy, right? Don't use any of my advice for anything medical. But I'm trying to give you guys ideas of things that you can get now that might disappear very quickly, okay? Because that's something that I believe Vlad actually was asking about earlier, and I think it's something that we can discuss. So those items are very important. And the only ones I found, like I said, was on Walmart's pet pharmacy right now, okay? Other things you guys might want to take a look at. Do you have your comms? Do you have your communications set aside? Do you have things ready to go for that? Because, there are people buying up like Baofeng radios and all those amateur ham radios and everything else that's out there. People are buying those up because they feel like if they are quarantined long enough and if the towers go down or the power goes out or whatever it might be, that they still want to be able to communicate with the outside. They want to talk to their relatives. They want to talk to their loved ones. So Baofeng radios or anything similar to that, even if you just need to get basic, Motorola two-way radios, have something you can access and just have them now. So, Bobby Reichbeard. Yeah, exactly. Like I said, I used to buy them on eBay occasionally. Now they're literally gone. So, like I said, I did some digging today, and that's where I found them. So, Rip Curl, let's see. Yeah, I think the panic would be much less if everyone was fully educated beforehand. But as we know, the mainstream media is very guilty of inflaming a lot of this panic and inflaming a lot of these ideas people are having. Because a good example is that the other day on the news I read, 4 people were tested and none of them were positive. I don't understand when that became news, but suddenly it's news now just when people are being tested, not only just being positive, So just getting the test now makes you newsworthy, apparently. So if anybody wants to get some exposure, I guess that's a good way to go, right? So, yeah, and Bobby, Thomas Labs, that is the company that makes a lot of those items we were talking about a minute ago. So like Sunless Sentinel, if that's something you want to get, you can search Thomas Labs, you can find a lot of that stuff, and then you'll find the information online that tells you that everything in those ingredients is basically the same thing you'll find in their other counterparts. So let's see here. One thing I do want to kind of address here. This martial law scenario is an imminent scenario, and that's where we're at right now. And those of us who are in this chat are generally the prepared types. We are people who have always speculated on whether or not it's going to be a possibility, or if it can happen, or if it's something that we can make it through. Correct. So one of the things I wanted to also address is the idea that this is a really good time to get new people involved with preparation, with preparedness, especially family members, close friends, relatives. People who don't prepare now are very suddenly open to the idea of preparation. They're very open to this concept of, hey, I need to get stuff. I need to have extra stuff. I need suddenly tons of water. I suddenly need an extra 2 months supply of food. Suddenly my pantry is fuller than it's ever been before. And this is a great segue to say, hey, this is where I've been the whole time. And this is what I've been kind of telling you about in the past. And if you want to keep doing this with me, I'm really excited to help you. And even after this event, goes away, if possible, then hopefully we can continue to prepare together, because I feel like a lot of new people are joining this movement now. That were never in it before. But this situation has scared a lot of people into the idea of like, oh man, I literally am not prepared. I am not ready. And it's not even just being like a prepper. It's not even about just stockpiling and everything else related to being a prepper. But a lot of people, at least now, are in the impression that, of like, at least the 2 is 1 is none situation, right? So now people who used to just, go down to 1 roll of toilet paper, which I have done in the past. I'm not going to lie to you guys. There's been times where that's happened to me, right? Now those people won't ever let that happen again. Now when people have 0 cans of food in the pantry, suddenly they are, not going to ever have 0 cans of food in the pantry. So even if they're not going to go out and buy survival gear and buy firearms and buy, bug out kits and everything else that we all love to talk about and purchase and enjoy, at least they might have a few extra supplies laying around their house. At least they might have more than 1 tube of toothpaste. These are things that I think is actually a positive about this situation. And if you have a chance to try to move somebody into that mindset of preparedness, use this opportunity to do it, because there's really probably not a better time that's going to come around after this anytime soon, unless there is no after this, which that sucks. So so let's see. I'll go through the comments a little bit more, but if you guys have any questions, or if anybody new's chimed in and you're just wondering what some of this imminent martial law timeline is, and what some of the information is there, just go ahead and chime in the chat so I can just catch you up to speed. And then at the same time, if you're speculating, if you have any speculation on what might run out next, or what we might need to keep ready, instead of running out of, mention that as well. That way you guys can all kind of help each other out. Not everybody has the same ideas about what the next hot ticket item is going to be, but maybe it's something we all haven't even thought about ourselves, so we can share some of that information and get ahead of the curve there. Yeah, no, my wife is definitely ready for a foot massage, Billy Bird. So I don't know if you're psychic or if we're just really on that same wavelength, but there was some negotiations here for her to join the chat, and a foot rub was definitely part of those talks. So I'm a little bit worried about us being too interlinked at this point. But let's see. Toys. Okay. So Cap Jackson. That's a good one to bring up. And I don't think a lot of people have thought about it, but check it out. People are buying the crap out of board games right now. So I don't know if you guys know that, but board games are selling pretty well because people are worried they're not going to have power at this point, and they're buying board games to keep the kids entertained, right? I mean, we all have plenty of video game systems and all kinds of stuff like that, but board games, man, they are going. Alcohol, there you go. Sunless Sentinel. Exactly. Go to the liquor store, and right now it's actually still pretty well stocked. But that's not going to last, especially now that all the cleaning supplies are gone. Bleach, it's gone. Ammonia, it's gone. I even noticed that vinegar is disappearing. Well, you can clean with alcohol if you need to, and people are going to start looking at that as not only a way to enjoy their time off during quarantine, but they're going to turn it into a way to keep cleaning if they run out of their other supplies. So that's definitely a good one to mention. Do you have any ideas of things that people might be buying up or might be disappearing?
Well, what I've noticed is a lot of people buy shit to resell it.
Yeah. So yeah, people are buying stuff to make a profit, right? And that's an issue as well. So let's see here, and that's actually probably the worst thing that can happen, because opportunists that are hurting everybody else by creating that unreachable price of these items is starting to also cause a problem. The secondary market is an issue. So let's see. Yeah, Bones, what's up, buddy? So yeah, the Georgia Guidestones, huh? That's an interesting anniversary to have coming up so soon. For those of you who aren't aware of the Georgia Guidestones, they're basically a monument that basically, I guess the best way for me to say it, without getting into crazy amount of detail, is that they give you the outline for what like the perfect population and structure of like the country would be, and anything above that is no longer sustainable. So therefore, you obviously don't want to have more people than what they're trying to dictate, basically. So interesting that a pandemic is happening during that time, and those guidestones have been talked about for years about what their relevance is, and what kind of people actually not only believe in its message but are also trying to enforce it. So very interesting there, Bones. And let's see. Bug out baby bag, Robert Woolley. Yeah, no. All my bug out bags have some baby supplies in them just by default, because if we're out and about, I like to make sure there's something in there in case that situation arises. But maybe having a specified one when the new baby's here is an even better idea. Those baby bags are pretty big, like it's carrying a suitcase around with everything you need for that baby. So sometimes I feel like the baby is more prepared than I am, for whatever might happen that day. Let's see. Billy Bird, it's not a Freemason hand sign I keep doing on purpose. Is it a Freemason hand sign? Yeah. Is it one I mean to do? No. So I apologize to everybody in there. I've been called out for this before on some of my other videos, where people have said, you are always doing the hand sign and it's freaking me out. And sometimes I feel like you're giving me bad information to steer me in the wrong direction, right? So I promise everybody in here, not a Freemason hand sign. And I'm not related to the Illuminati or anything like that. So I apologize. The Illuminati invited me in, would my curiosity spike? Yeah, of course, but I'm not much into the spirit cooking and all those fun things that I like to talk about. So, okay. So Sunless Sentinel, plastic plumbing equipment. Okay. So this is something I considered. We recently moved, And one thing that I'd really like to get in the event of a martial law situation where who knows what happens, right? When do they shut the power off in order to control the masses or something like that, right? Because maybe there's a curfew that's so strict that they start shutting things down on purpose to keep people where they are, right? We don't know how those things are going to run, but something I'd really like to invest in that I think is a great investment during like a martial law scenario is a hand pump for your well. You know, right now we just recently moved, so I haven't been setting things up the way I would like to necessarily, but I also don't own this property, so I don't want to make, you know, modifications that I might have made at my own home. But basically, if you're on a well and you're on an electric pump and that's all you have and it's not solar, and even if it is solar, you should have a hand pump at least just in case. You know, a hand pump gets you that water out of that well. Generally uses some kind of filtration device on the end of the pipe and puts out decently clean water without any power other than manpower. So I like that for a lot of things. It's the same reason I actually use a combination safe for my firearms instead of a digital keypad safe, just because I don't like trusting a electronic component when there's a manual component that can do the same job. Yeah, you know, look, the likes are fine. You know, I appreciate the support, Robert, Willie. On my side, they're showing more, so maybe that's an updated thing. I don't know, but yeah, of course, I appreciate all the likes, guys. You know, everybody in here is very familiar, even if you're not regular on the channel. You know, chiming in with comments and everything else. Even if you're just here occasionally, or if you're somewhere else, like on, you know, maybe in a Marfugal chat or something like that. I'm seeing a lot of really familiar faces in here, and I really appreciate all you guys being here. So Dre Dog says, tell us. So I assume you're saying that you weren't here earlier for the information about the imminent martial law. So imminent martial law, information coming from a reliable source that is then being transferred to me, saying that if everything doesn't change or abruptly halt the way things are going right now within the next 3 weeks. 3 weeks is the cutoff date where martial law will be declared, and that's when you know, things are going to get real. So that is information coming directly from a source in the Pentagon, and that's also reasonable in the timeline of things that we have going on right now, based on previous events that we can analyze, as well as how these stepping stones have to be met, right? If you're going to declare a national emergency, that gives you the ability to then declare a martial law, right? And everything else that we've seen happen so far is just the ramp up to the next step. So there's no reason not to assume that next step is still coming. If we all think we're just going to stop where we are right now, I think that is possibly naive. And we as a people should understand that, yes, we've had situations like this in the past, and yes, there's been a lot of crazy scenarios where you know, things have gotten a little out of control. But I don't really remember like the giant corporations shutting down. I don't remember the NBA ever just stopping their season, or the NHL stopping their season, or any of those things happening due to a particular event. And now schools are canceling extracurricular activities. Some schools in the nation, of course, are closed down in general. They're postponing college courses, all kinds of stuff. And that's just where we're at right now. So it is it's an interesting time to be in, and we're all very concerned about the fact that, you know, this idea of imminent martial law is more of a possibility now than it probably has been in the past. So yes, they poisoned all the hot dogs. Man, that's rough, because we ate our share of hot dogs in this house. I'm not gonna lie. Preferably the all beef franks. So maybe that's what's saving us. I don't know. We'll see. I got some of the cheap ones in the fridge right now. Maybe I should dump them. I don't know. So let's see. Prescott Caliber Club. What's up, buddy? How you doing? Good to see you, man. I'm glad you're popping in on a live stream tonight. I'm trying it out. You know, you've done a lot more than I have. So if you have any pointers for me in the future, let me know, and I will definitely take your advice. But things are getting wild, and lockdown's coming the way. And I do hope you're wrong as well, because obviously none of us really actually want that to happen. So Bones, basically, as I explained earlier on, and the best way for me to say this without putting out too much information is that an acquaintance of mine's immediate family member works in the Pentagon, and that's what I'm using these terms as a way to not divulge too much. But that person is informing me that basically there's a 3-week timeline in place right now from the Department of Defense that says if things keep progressing in the way that they already have been at the speed that they're progressing, then we can expect a martial law to be enacted within 3 weeks. And the 3-week period is more related to the reaction of the population than it is to the virus itself. The virus is now the scapegoat for whatever else happens down the road. We're now blaming the virus for things that we otherwise wouldn't have accepted, right? So now, how do you declare martial law when people don't want one? Well, you do it for the safety of everyone, right? The safety of everyone right now, without putting the blame on the people themselves, is to say that this virus is the problem. But the reality of it all is that the people's reaction and the way they're panicking and the way the supply chain is starting to fall behind, which we all know, our 3-day supply of groceries at our local stores is all we have. If that keeps continuing and people keep acting the way they are now, that's when it's going to happen. And I guess the cutoff date for that time that was explained to this person was that it was within the next 3 weeks. So to me, that's important for everybody here to be aware of, for everyone to be under the impression that you might only have 3 more weeks to continually prepare. Okay, and so to me, what does that mean? Try to avoid stores if you can. If you're already prepared and you're good at having supplies on hand, then try your best to not go out into the chaos. Because even the other night, I just had to go get dog food and stuff for our dogs, right? And it was just like a nightmare. I couldn't believe how crazy it was. And this was at midnight, and this is in North Dakota, the least populated state in the nation. So I can only assume what it's like anywhere else. And I was surprised by the amount of people, and I was surprised by the amount of chaos. But the other thing is that 3 weeks at least, if we want to kind of work with that timeline as a theoretical amount of time we have to keep moving, is enough to get more online orders in. Okay, so if you can find more equipment or more supplies or more food or medicine or anything else that might be pertinent to what you need right now, and you can find it online, I think ordering it now is a safe bet, because if we do have a week or two for some of our quicker delivery services to catch up, then maybe we can actually get some of those additional items in before that scenario occurs. And that's what I've been doing. I've actually been ordering some things online and just hoping for the best. If some of them don't make it here, that happens, right? But some of the items I'm ordering are, I guess you would say, more obscure, but they're things that I'm worried might not be available down the road if people continue this snowball towards, more and more preparedness supplies. It started with the toilet paper, and suddenly it's moving to the camping section. And suddenly I'm like witnessing people buying a bunch of the little propane tanks, and the store the other day was sold out of single burner stoves for those propane tanks. So people are moving down that direction now as well, and picking up the things that we usually like to just browse and enjoy when we're on our regular day out. So Swiss Army Josh, schools are closed. It's a little bit insane. Bones, yeah, Menards is a great place. Places like Menards, a lot of people don't know that Menards actually sells groceries. Menards sells food, and then you can also go pick up some of our home improvement prepping supplies that a lot of us need more of. And when I say that, 2x4s, nails, screws, sealant, adhesives, things that, if you ever do need to fortify, or if you ever do need to construct, makeshift shelters or whatever it might be, you can have some of that stuff put away. So another thing you guys should look into is pool treatment. So all the bleach is sold out at the stores in my area, but people haven't quite bought up all the pool treatment yet either, because it's basically just bleach. It's super concentrated. So if you were going to, say, add it to like a water storage container in order to purify it and make it last longer, then you would have to adjust the amount you would add to it for that reason. But pool treatment is actually a little bit easier to get right now, whereas bleach is just gone. So that is something to kind of keep in mind. Pool shock, that's what it's called. Pool shock. Thank you, Casual Preparedness. I couldn't remember the word for it, so thank you. So yeah, and all these things that people are putting into the chat right now, all these different items and pieces of equipment that we can actually, go out and acquire still before the average person realizes it's something that they could use. Those are things that are good alternatives to things we might already own, like Bones. I think it was Bones, or no. Bones said RV water filters work really good, right? So, I already have water filtration systems. You guys probably have a lot of water filtration systems. But if you were trying to get more water filtration systems, you probably want to find some of those alternatives. And there you go. Bones just gave you one. So these are all things that we want to try to keep, front and center, and try to keep pushing out there so more and more people can actually get some of those supplies. It's crazy. And the amount of people that have talked to me about what they should be buying right now, or what they should have already had, or what they should buy for their first firearm. All these things are happening right now. And honestly, most people in my everyday life have no idea I run this YouTube channel. They have no idea I am like a self-proclaimed prepper necessarily. But I guess they have an idea that, I'm more prepared than they are, because I sometimes pull out a pocket knife, or I sometimes have a flashlight, that these people would never even think to carry. So it is really interesting to hear what people are wondering about, what people are doing. Not only is ammo selling, but guns are selling like crazy too. And a lot of first-time firearm owners are about to enter into the the void of being a gun owner, which is a void of spending all your money all the time for the rest of your life, apparently. So, which I'm sure most of you out there can understand. So, gardening is awesome. If you can garden and you can sprout, great thing to have, especially in a martial law scenario. If you're considering a martial law being enacted, being able to just go out in your garden and collect fruits or vegetables is way more efficient than trying to, go get rations at the handout spot, or to try to go buy whatever supplies are left over at your grocery store. So it's really important skill. And if you don't have it, or you don't have the space to do it, or you don't have the ability to do it, understandable. Most people, I would say, and when you're talking general public, don't have that possibility for them. But if you do, definitely good thing, skill to learn, and a good thing to have. Even if it's just something as simple as fruit trees, they don't have to maintain as much, but they just produce fruit seasonally. That can be a huge one-up for you if ever needed. So let's see. So Mondak Living, man, good to see you. Me and Mondak are basically neighbors. And for those of you who aren't from North Dakota, as long as you live within 5 hours of somebody, you're a neighbor, because that's how far you drive for anything anyway. So it's just how it works out here. But Mondag is saying, someone was saying people are buying stuff that they had no clue what they were getting, and that's 100% true. A lot of people are out right now buying just whatever, if it's got the word survival on it, or if it's got batteries in it, they're buying it. If it has a picture of a fire on it, they're buying it. And if they just want to say they're prepared, and they're just buying cans of like white hominy and all kinds of stuff like that. And I mean, most of these people, I'm seeing like somebody would never expect to buy cans and cans and cans of menudo at the store, probably not even realizing what the main ingredient of menudo is really interesting to me because, they're just buying it because it's in a can and it's in a big can and it's on the shelf, so it's time to buy it. But man, I feel bad for all those people who bought a ton of menudo that have no idea what it is and haven't ever eaten it before, and the aftermath of what that's going to do to their body. Just throwing that out there. So, let's see. So yeah, hashtag new Sig Frank. I appreciate you jumping in. Robert, thanks for mentioning that. If you're new to the chat, you haven't been here since the beginning or since earlier on, feel free to put hashtag new in the chat just so I can see if there's some newcomers who need some of the information that we were talking about before, and to maybe have my wife say hi to you because she is much more approachable and good looking than I am. So, iPac 9mm. My magic trick tonight is the fact that I was able to get this woman who's much more attractive than me to actually be here with me. So that's the magic trick tonight, because I'm still not sure how I pulled it off, but it definitely had some kind of supernatural aspect to it, I guess, So let's see. Okay. Sig Frank, just so you're aware, since you're the hashtag new guy right now, basically what information was given to me. Of course, I could go through the whole thing again, but all it comes down to do like the layman's terms, quicker version, is that a source I'm familiar with that has information directly from the Pentagon was informed that we have 3 weeks to prepare before a martial law is declared. And that 3-week timeline is based on the exponential growth of the current event. And if things don't change, or if things continue to move forward in the same speed that they are right now, that we basically have 3 weeks for that cutoff. So, there's no reason to really question the source, and there's not much reason to question the information, due to the fact that it honestly is reasonable with everything going on right now, with all the stepping stones in place, and with all the ramp up of every step of the way that we all kind of see coming when it comes to these scenarios. That is what's next in line, and there's no reason to believe it's not going to happen. If it doesn't, great. Of course, none of us, especially preppers who enjoy their freedom and privacy, none of us want to live under martial law. But if it does come, I don't think any of us should be surprised at this point. And I think a 3-week timeline on it is reasonable and logical based on our current situation. So, I like all the compliments to my wife here. That's why she's here. I think she wanted to know if anybody here liked her or not. So I told her a long time ago that if she was on my channel more, I'd probably do a lot better, because, same reasons you guys are all saying. But yeah. So Max V, warning sign for when the police will stop working. The police will stop working when they are personally affected by the situation at hand. And what that means is if their family becomes infected, or if their family becomes, I guess you would say, unable to support themselves without that person being there, or if things get dangerous enough to where they have a divine responsibility to their family to protect them and make sure that they have what they need to survive a situation, that's when the police leave their post. Generally, I think most police take their oaths pretty well to heart. I don't think that many of them have any reason to just abandon post. But I think any one of us in here in this chat, anyone on the all-knowing internet who has a family and people that they care about and people that actually rely on them, is basically that if your family is in danger or in need, that takes priority over anything else. So I would say that that's when you're going to see the police start leaving their post. Okay. Yeah. So let's see. National Guard is already deployed. So yep. Sunny J Shores. Thanks for chiming in with that. That's right. The National Guard is already deployed in some areas. So that's just where things go. You just doot, 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 and you take it along. So let's see. Sorry about my sound effects. I'm not quite dialed in yet to have my own soundboard ready to go at the touch of a button. So let's see. Yeah, everyone wants you on camera more. You should scoot over more, apparently. She's not shy. She's just not sure what to say because I never shut up, according to some of the other participants here. So
I mean, they're not wrong.
I know they're not wrong. I know. And I don't know why, but I have this feeling that I can't let there just be dead silence, especially when we're all talking and chatting and talking about this current event. So I just feel the need to keep talking because I I want to keep the information going. But so some of the things I am reading here. Let's see. Okay. So Sig Frank, the 3-week timeline, it could be sooner, but that's like the cutoff. So basically we don't see a turnaround or an improvement in the current situation within 3 weeks, then that's when the martial law happens. And it could happen sooner if things escalate rapidly, on even a faster trajectory than they are right now. But that is kind of the timeline that apparently the Pentagon is working with, to say, if this criteria meets this criteria, then in 3 weeks, that's when we'll drop the hammer. Jody Akers, I heard the 23rd. Definitely possible. I mean, that's only 8 days away, right? So 8 days is, very possible for things to change dramatically. And I could see that being acceptable. I think some of the reasoning behind the 3-week timeline was also because of the logistics, right? If you're thinking about when you're deploying the necessary ground crews in order to enforce martial law and actually put it into place where people are actually staying put where they belong, there's logistics involved there to get the supplies, the men, the crews, everybody out to their positions. So they have to buy themselves a little bit of time without raising the alarm, because as we all know, when we see cargo trains full of Humvees and tanks driving by, and when we see military trucks driving through the streets that we're not used to seeing, it raises an alarm. And especially people like us, film it, put it on YouTube and say, this is what's happening. They're doing it. They're doing it. They're doing it. So they might be buying some time to try to keep the panic at a stable level. And then if it continues to escalate regardless, it doesn't matter anymore. And let's send it in because people are already, full blown panicking. So what's the difference? So let's see. So let's see. Weird hour limits for truckers. This whole thing feels like a setup, Jasmine, Gemini. Yep. There are some interesting things going on here that don't feel quite correct. I agree with you on that. Let's see. Bugging out. I only suggest bugging out if it's your last option. So we're not planning on bugging out. If anything, bugging in is the best bet for us, especially in our living situation right now. We're not in like a neighborhood, or we're not in like a tight environment with other people necessarily. So we will probably just try to stay put for as long as possible. Let's see. Dominic Dalt, welcome to the chat. Looks like we might be closing the interstates as soon as Monday. I mean, it's possible. Look, I'm not here to tell you for a fact everything's going to happen exactly the way that I was told it would. But I do want to say that like certain interstates could be closed, and a lot of that could have to do with the amount of additional traffic that's out there right now. And when you're trying to stop the spread of a virus, everybody going to every single big box store all at the same time and being in the same crowded area for longer periods of time is a great way to continue that spread. So just so everyone's aware, that I don't think that's necessarily out of question. However, soon as Monday, possible. Maybe in places with really dense populations. I would really doubt seeing that happen in like the breadbasket or in flyover country, because they still need to get fuel and supplies, everything else out to the rest of the country in order to continue to enact something like martial law. So we'll see, though. I will definitely keep an eye on that. Let's see. Oh, and Bones, have a good night, brother. Thanks for coming in. I appreciate you being here, and thanks so much. And I will definitely catch up with you soon in some of your videos. Let's see. Just so you guys know, just so everyone's aware, on this live stream right now and in this chat, there are a lot of really good prepper channels and survival channels, and even like current event news coverage type channels. So if anyone is interested in getting more information about similar topics like this one, you literally, from what I see, go down your chat screen, click on those three dots to the right of the text box, and click view channel on, a large majority of the people in this chat right now, and you're going to find some great channels, some great videos, and some great information. So just going to throw that out there really quickly. So let's see here. All right. Dow Jones Monday, green or red? Okay, so green or red, basically, I think coming off of the weekend and seeing what's going on in the world. Oh man, if I was a betting man, which apparently if you're invested in stocks or any type of asset class, you probably are. I'm going to say it's still in the red. And the reason behind that is because we are now in a national emergency situation, which just that verbiage alone makes everyone uncomfortable and makes everybody, I guess, worried, right? As well as the fact that the panic buying is, helping retail outlets, but the manufacturers who actually fuel most of the markets are not able to meet demand. So by not being able to meet demand, their product is basically, it's becoming unobtainable. So their sales are sinking because they're no longer able to keep up. And that's just a very basic idea of why I think the market would be down come Monday. I don't want to go into extreme detail right now on any of that, just because I don't want to mislead anybody when it comes to financial decisions, and I'm definitely not a financial advisor. So please don't take any of my, talk about it as something you should go do. That's just my opinion, and that's just what I assume we're going to be looking at. So let's see here. So martial law, IPAC 9mm, basically. What can happen during martial law is extreme in many ways. You relinquish many of your rights during a martial law scenario. Your property is no longer a safe haven, and the government basically is able to put in restrictions and limitations on all of our rights until they decide otherwise. Basically saying that until things have calmed down, or until we have gotten into a position where we're comfortable, we can suspend your rights, suspend your ability to be a free person, and dictate, what you're allowed to do from here on out. And that's layman's terms going about what they can do during martial law. But that is all that really matters, because it's that, once your rights are limited and once your rights are restricted or even just completely suppressed, you're at the will of whoever decides, your fate. And that's where we don't want to be. So that's basically the best way to look at it is, if martial law is enacted, there's nothing stopping your constitutional rights from being just trounced on, and from your ability to defend yourself in court isn't even necessarily there, because during martial law, those powers are given so that people don't have the same consequences for shredding those rights while they're in a martial law situation. That is the point of martial law, is to give them additional powers and additional protection to use those powers without repercussion after the fact, because that was what was right and necessary for that time. And that is basically, how they would operate. What's right and necessary right now. And it goes anywhere from just saying you're not allowed to go down this street all the way up to, use of lethal force is allowed. So that's basically it in a nutshell. And martial law also gives people the ability to, or not people, but the government, the ability to restrict supply chains, to deny supplies, when it comes to prioritizing the military or any other governmental function over the people. So, they can shut down our ability to get supplies because they want to make sure they have access to them first. If you look at how they're raising oil, right? So interesting move, right? So this oil situation going on at the same time as this virus is really all coming together, right? And how are they going to raise oil to not hurt the economy in the country, and especially where I live, where that's the economy is oil? What they're doing is the Department of Energy now has the right to buy up lots of oil at a better price than what we're able to get for it right now to fill the strategic reserves. Okay, so filling the strategic reserves means that not only are they able to operate for longer periods of time without having to refill their reserves, but they're also filling the strategic reserves right now, which, yes, it is an economic move from the outside perspective, but is it also not an interesting thing to have them do while this is all going on, while a national emergency is declared, while a martial law situation is imminent? It's very coincidental, I would say that as much, to say that the answer to fixing the oil economy is to buy it all for the government and then store it away, right? And that's exactly what they could do with any other supply they decide to during a martial law scenario. So just keep that in mind. From what I understand, and maybe some of those who have been in law enforcement before here, or maybe ex-military or National Guard, maybe you can chime in. But even things like sporting goods stores and grocery stores can be basically forcibly, taken to resupply whatever it is that unit might need at the time, versus having to even go through an actual resupply. Oh man! All right, you guys can probably hear my kids occasionally; they're chiming in. But our office is downstairs and they're upstairs, so they're just shouting down the stairs, trying to get our attention, basically. So let's see. I'm going to go ahead and start looking into the chat a little bit more. That's why my wife keeps disappearing. She's corralling the kiddos up there. So let's see. Man, it's hard to read and talk at the same time at times. I'm not going to lie. So casual preparedness. You sell freeze-dried foods for everyday meals and emergency preparedness. So if you guys are looking for more freeze-dried food for long-term storage, which is generally good for up to 25 years, go ahead and check out Casual Preparedness Profile. I'm sure he has a link there so you can purchase it. But I will tell you that a lot of the freeze-dried foods are gone. So if he's got some he's willing to sell to some of you in here, maybe you should just grab it up. I know that my buddy Survival Living, or as some of you know, Central Florida Prepper, he's an affiliate with Legacy Foods, and his Legacy Food rep told him that it's like a 35 to 55 day back order basically right now for freeze-dried meals. So just something to keep in mind. If he has some he's willing to sell, maybe not a bad idea if you need to get stocked up a little bit more. Okay. Let's see. Do some reading, just light reading. Okay. Martial law could start a civil war, according to DP King. Of course, anytime people are put into a cage or into a corner, they react in a way that you can't really expect. It's hard to predict how people are going to react to that. So you never know. Could it start a civil war? Sure, it could start any kind of a conflict. There's also the possibility during martial law, just so you guys are aware, that a foreign adversary might take that opportunity of us being weakened or us being, restricted as a way to, maybe strike a blow. You never know. So that is something to consider always. And obviously, some of the theories out there right now, which I think are at least interesting and at least willing. I'm willing to entertain the idea, just in the sense of trying to stay more prepared. But some of the ideas out there right now is that the China and the Chinese government, manufactured this crisis in order to hurt the United States economy. And if China and Russia, who also simultaneously got into an oil dispute with Saudi Arabia, crashing energy prices, and then China having this virus, which has now spread to us and is starting to infect at a higher rate than it did over there. Interesting that they're both in the BRICS bank nations, and that they would have a vested interest in our dollar and our IMF current global banking situation was to fail. So a lot of people are feeling like this is almost possibly in the background, some kind of a I guess you would call like a proxy war of sorts, and that the reason national emergency has been declared and the reason martial law is imminent is actually because there is a foreign adversary at work here versus just being somebody who, or something like a virus spreading or a pandemic that led us to all start to panic. So I'm not saying that's what's happening. I'm saying that's some of the theories out there. And I feel like there's, at least some reason to give it a little bit of thought and to entertain some of it. So yeah, let's see. So go terrace. Yes, rural towns cannot be restricted the same as the large cities. So martial law, they're going to focus their efforts on the large population centers because it's easier to keep those people in line, because there's certain ports of entry and exit that don't make it difficult to keep track of everybody. Whereas in a rural environment, come try to tell me not to go somewhere right now. I'm literally in a position where I could pull out of my driveway and just drive, north and just not ever see a car for the next hour. So it is true that they're going to focus on the cities. The rural environments will be much more local law enforcement related versus having a lot of National Guard presence. But that's how you would expect it to unfold. Let's see. So Billy Bird Outdoors is saying New York City is getting a lot of 911 calls about people basically, acting as if they have the virus, acting as if, because they're sick, maybe they need emergency assistance. That is something that's going to clog up our system. It's going to cause people who actually need the help to not receive it as quickly as they could otherwise. And then we're going to be in a situation where people are no longer able to get tested or get help, because cry wolf always leads to people not caring anymore. Let's see here. So Red Dawn scenario, huh, Robert? I like that idea in the sense of Wolverines always win. So as long as the Wolverines come out on top, we can live with that, I think. Let's see. DP King. All right. Give me a second. Freedom Cup time. Yeah. I'm not going to lie. Coffee at my time, 12:30 at night, maybe not always the worst idea, but hey. So, okay. DP King, could this be a bioweapon? Obviously, it could. I mean, it could. There's no proof that it is currently that we're aware of. There's a lot of speculation that it could be one, but I don't know for a fact if it is or not. And if you're just asking if it could be, most definitely. Could it have been something they were working on and then it got out of the lab? Of course. Is there weird similarities between that one medical facility in China and the Umbrella Corporation? Sure. So yeah, some of those things are weird, but coincidences happen, but sometimes they're a little bit too coincidental, right? Let's see here. So IPAC 9mm, EMP is going to be if somebody is actually committing an act of war. So if this situation right now is leading up to that, I think it's possible, but I don't really think that's where we're heading, because right now, if we stay on the trajectory we're on, then no one needs to actually strike that blow because there isn't any obvious adversary right now. It's just a virus that's out of control that's causing our own population to panic, and that could just be the plan to begin with. So one thing you could say is that this scenario might make the average person think about our reliance on foreign trade. And who knows, maybe some of this is part of our trade negotiations, because we either might use this opportunity to say that we need to build more manufacturing and more products in the United States in order to avoid running out of supplies again in the future if something like this happens. Or it could be a response to the tariffs and the trade deal that we have made with China about their undercutting of the market. So there's a lot of possibilities here at play. So I definitely I don't rule out any real possibilities. And I think as preppers and people who are prepared, you should be in the same boat. Never rule something out just because it seems outlandish, right? Hey, what's up, South Florida, DCL? Good to see you. Yeah, I mean, if you're in the preparedness mindset, but you're closed-minded, it's very hard to be well-rounded in your preparedness, okay? Is the idea of martial law happening very reasonable and very likely based on our current situation? Yeah, and that's something that 2 years ago, if you're on YouTube watching prepper channels, guys are saying martial law this, martial law that, and a lot of people are chiming in saying they'll never do it because of this or because of that. So, and here we are in a situation where I think it's highly possible. So these are things that we have to consider. We also want to, I don't know, prepare for a lot of other things that might not be reasonable in our minds right now, but for the same reason. We want to go ahead and find out if everybody is, open-minded and willing to accept that things could happen that everybody thinks, is outlandish. So, yep. And that's right, Robert Woolley. We're at that point where a lot of people are going, oh, suddenly I need a bunch of stuff. Suddenly I don't have anything. I don't have any supplies. I don't have any plan. I don't have any way of making myself less of a problem than the next person. And amazing how these people suddenly are flocking the stores and buying crap that they've never once bought in their life. So yes, we are. We're prepared. We're willing to accept that things could happen that are out of our control. And we've been building up our supplies and our skills and our mindset for this entire time. But a lot of these people are not at that point. So, let's see, flute musician. If you think I'm an idiot, I wouldn't listen to an idiot either. So not the worst idea to not listen to an idiot. Let's see. Yeah, people are talking about how, okay, Macu Kid 12. A lot of this virus is hype. And why is it hype? That's the question you should be asking, more so than, why are the fatality rates between influenza and coronavirus so different? And why is the reaction to coronavirus so much higher than influenza? That is the question, right? That's something that you should be asking yourself and that everyone should be considering. Why is this virus being used as a way to move us in this direction? Why is this virus being used as a way to shut everything down, enact a national emergency, which has always happened in many, many scenarios. So it's not like that's like an unheard of thing to have happen, but it does open the door for martial law and other items like that to happen here in the future, and possibly very shortly. Let's see. Yeah, Zeus of Crete. So I will say my closest interaction with a victim of this virus, I have an employee whose grandfather passed away. And that person is now traveling to that part of the country in Washington State to go to that person's funeral. So that's as close as I've been to an actual person who, is like has someone in their family or someone close to them that has the infection, and this person didn't even just receive the infection but actually passed away from it. And of course that person fit the MO, which right now is elderly people. They have a harder time combating this virus, so they're the more likely ones to not recover from it. So very sad. And of course, it is an interesting scenario because in the past, if someone's relative had passed away, we let them go take care of whatever they have to do and come back when they're ready. Now we have to have this discussion of if you exhibit any signs of illness, or if you're worried about your health, please make sure to notify us before you return, so that we can decide, how to move forward from there. A very interesting situation that I've never had to deal with before when it comes to staff relations. So okay, so South Florida DCL, martial law, we know go good here in the South. No, and that's true. I'd say most of us would not. Sorry, I just read it as is, I guess. So in the South, anywhere really where people have a lot of pride and are very self-reliant and have a lot of independence, that's where martial law is not going to go well, because people don't want to be told what they can or can't do, especially by their own government, which, don't forget, they're supposed to work for us. We don't work for them. So that's the equivalent of, the students telling the teacher how to run the class. But that's what we'd be looking at. And yeah, especially, and I'm not just saying that because I live in a rural area, but in rural areas, that's probably where we're going to see the most resistance to martial law, because people are used to being on their own, having their own freedoms and rights, and being able to act and, live in a way that they decide is best. So yeah, it's definitely not going to go well, most likely in many, many places. So again, we'll go back to the idea that it will probably be mostly contained to the higher population zones, large cities, and places where the local law enforcement and National Guard can work together to restrict traffic and to actually enforce all the curfews and codes that they put into place during that time. Macu Kid 12. Yeah, Bernie Sanders breadline. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. That is definitely a possibility if things don't change, because what we saw in the last week about toilet paper is, you could take a video from Venezuela and put it right on top of a video from Costco last week here in America, and you would think they were in the same place. That's how people in Venezuela were acting when supplies got short and when everything became very rare. And next thing you know, people are hoarding toilet paper and bread and everything else. And here we are doing it in our country for different reasons, but a lot of the times with the same outcome: panic, chaos, and eventual I guess I would say overbearing military presence, right? Not just military, but law enforcement. So very good observation, Maku Kid, and I definitely think that's something to consider. So yeah, wait and see mode, exactly. So if you're not in wait and see mode right now, then you're probably not watching this video. You're probably not looking for information about what's happening. So those are the people that we all have a responsibility to try to help. If you know people who literally know nothing about what's going on, like some of the people I've interacted with this week that have literally asked me, like, what's a national emergency, you know, or what does Donald Trump do for a living, you know? Those are the things that you want to basically, you know, take that time and say, hey, look, here's some stuff you should really start considering, and I think you would do well to maybe pay a little bit more attention. Okay, I had a young person just the other day when me and another colleague were discussing some of the interesting words that tend to come out of Joe Biden's mouth, and that young person, and when I say young person, I mean this is like an 18, 19-year-old. They turned around and said, "Who's Joe Biden?" Right? So if this person has no idea who even Joe Biden is, imagine what their information level on this virus, this situation, what we could possibly be seeing happening in the future. Imagine their level of information when it comes to that, which is basically zero, I would assume. They're probably getting most of their information off of memes on Facebook, and then turning around and saying, you know, hey, I heard that Corona beer is bad to drink right now. So yeah, that's where we're at. So use this situation right now as a really good way to segue new preppers into preparation. Get more people prepared. The more people that are prepared, the better off we're all going to be when things get really bad, because those people won't be coming to your house. Those people won't be clogging up the roads. They won't be hitting up the grocery store in the middle of it all. They're going to be in their home, safe and away from you and yours. So that's a good way to try to use the situation, push it the best way you can, and try your best to like make it work. You know, it does coincide with the Mandatory National ID Act. I don't know if there's any reason for that, but guess what? Macu Kid 12. I like a lot of your observations tonight. If you don't get a real ID, you can't travel on airplanes. All right, it really restricts your travel, and a lot of people aren't going to go out of their way to get one because they either don't travel or they don't think about it. And you know, it is possible that that can actually aid in a lot of the stemming of travel is by you know, eliminating the people who aren't willing to go get that ID and aren't willing to meet the requirements to actually travel. So something to think about. So thanks for bringing that up. So just so everybody knows, we are at about an hour and 52 minutes on this live stream so far. I really, really appreciate everybody's interaction, all the support. You guys have been really, really awesome. And I look forward to doing more live streams here in the future. Now that I have things set up a little bit better in the new house, I would like to maybe start working on a schedule where you guys can expect videos coming out like certain days or on a more consistent basis, as well as maybe a once a week live stream being scheduled. Not always on Saturday night necessarily, but Saturday night's a good night for me because I'm usually off on Sundays. So, you know, I can stay up late with you guys and actually interact, which is my main goal here. I really wanted to talk to everybody. I wanted to get some a FaceTime in with everyone. And, you know, before we log out tonight, you know, send some more questions. Send me some more questions. You know, we can just touch base on a couple. I'm totally down to reach this 2-hour mark, so we got about like 7 minutes or so for that. And I'll get my wife back over here in a minute so we can you know, talk to her a little bit more, since she's clearly more popular than I am. So DP King, how long do you think this crisis will last? You know what? Originally, I didn't think very long, but because of what it's coinciding with at this point, and because of the amount of effort that is being put into it, people don't want to cancel sporting events. They don't want to cancel school, and they don't want to cancel work for a lot of people just to do it for a week or two. You know, when you're doing these things, you have to do it for a certain amount of time for it to be fiscally responsible to your company, as well as I guess what I would say effective. The point of closing down is so that the virus doesn't spread, right? Or that's the reasoning that they're using. So doing it for a week isn't going to accomplish that, you know? So we got to be closed down long enough to where we know it's safe for everybody to get back together. And that kind of, to me, sounds like waiting till either there's a way to get rid of the virus, there's a way to easily test large groups of people for the virus, or once we know the virus is no longer a threat. So that could be a long time. Yes, there are some vaccines in the works, and a lot of people are obviously skeptical of vaccines in the sense of this virus. And of course, I'm saying all the bad words on YouTube right now, so I'm going to get demonetized, but that's fine. The idea is that if those are available, it's your choice as a human being whether or not you want to take those. And that would be a scary scenario for a martial law to be enacted, where getting vaccinated for this virus is how you abide by the new rules, right? So that's interesting to me. And if you're, whether or not you're skeptical of vaccines or not, one that's brand new that just got created to literally combat a singular virus is not tried and tested. So I could see even the people who aren't worried about things like that as often as others should still be skeptical in many ways. So DB King, to answer your question, I think it could go a long time. I would say we're going to see things happening for the next at least 4 months. I wouldn't be surprised if they make it all the way to November, which just happens to coincide with an election as well. So that would be kind of almost predictable if that's what happens. If you guys have any other questions about preparedness, or if you have anything you ever want to work on or talk about, or maybe ideas for some videos or something like that, you can visit https blah blah blah, all that good stuff, right? I'm kidding. magicprepper.com. If you just go to magicprepper.com, I've got like a blog on there I write on occasionally. I also have some links to some of my not like affiliates, but like people I'm affiliated with that I think deserve some extra support. And then I also have a contact form on there. So if you want to contact me directly, you can actually do it right on the website. Sometimes it's easier than sending an email. And I usually get back to people pretty quickly. So if that's something you're interested in, go for it. You know what I mean? And if you have any other ideas for directions for the channel to take, or think where things should start heading, totally feel free to let me know, because I'm always down for feedback, and I'm always interested in hearing what you guys like to see or want to see. And I'm really appreciative of every single one of you. It's really been a really good time being on the platform, and the fact that all you guys are so supportive and so willing to help really makes me feel good. So thank you so much for that. Why don't I have my wife come over here just for the last 2 minutes? That way you guys can have something better to look at for the end of the live stream than me. And then it's true, you know it. I'm not lying. Excuse me, I'm getting a little hoarse if you guys can't tell. So otherwise, keep speculating. To me, it has been one of the more interesting things to do during this situation. Speculate. What's the next product? What's the next resource? What are people freaking out about next? Because if you get ahead of that, you can put yourself in a better position, or you can at least predict the movements. You can predict where people are headed next. Okay. Like I said, final recap. Source that seems reliable from the Pentagon mentioned to me a 3-week time limit or countdown for martial law being imminent. And that 3-week timeline is all based on if the exponential growth of the virus, but in reality, the exponential growth of the panic of the population continues to go in the direction it is right now within 3 weeks. But if not by 3 weeks, martial law will be declared. So if things change in that time, of course, we don't know for sure, but using that timeline as kind of a buffer before we run into these situations, get yourself prepared, or get your supplies ready, or get things ready to go. Fuel up your vehicles, stash away a little bit more water if you can, and try to order some things online if they're still available, because we might have enough time to get things shipped and put into place before everything gets locked down. Okay. So that's my advice heading out of this live stream. You didn't get to talk much, but did you enjoy yourself at least?
Yes.
She's definitely going to open up more down the road, I promise. And then you guys will see all the abuse that I received. So, and that's that look. So here we are. But once again, thank you guys so much. That's going to be us signing out, and hopefully we'll do some more live streams here in the future. I appreciate every single one of you being here, and that's going to be it for Magic Prepper.